What about the part where he said that it comes across as if there's a grand conspiracy on the part of the community?
That aspect of his assertion dovetailed into your own curiosity when you asked him that way back in those days, we used to have even CIDs who were students recruited. Look, I was an active student in the University of Nigeria. I was arrested 10 times as an undergraduate. All of those moments were tip-ups from within our ranks regarding one action or the other that we intended to take in giving expressions to our congregation.
So they were leading from the front there.
Thank you. I mean, perhaps as it affected Malachy Ugwumadu. but instances where they were expected to discharge their most fundamental responsibility, which is to secure the welfare and security of Nigerian citizens, you will always hear reasons why
Mr. Ugwumadu, let's look at this situation, because here we are. We understand that, you know, the boys were led to the traditional ruler, who seemed to have given his consent, you know, for the people to go ahead. But, as it were, do you think that under that circumstances, didn't the police run a very big risk, also trying to save the lives
the
of...
The murder was not perpetrated in the traditional ruler's palace. You said the one that they were led to the traditional ruler's palace.
Yes, yes.
They were also led away from the traditional ruler's palace and taken to, of course, the eventual spot where this
murder was taking place. So you're convinced, beyond reasonable doubt, that the police could actually have intervened, regardless of how the community felt?
Look, the policing is not a very cheap enterprise. Policing requires a lot more than what we are imagining here. If the police knew that the situation was such that they needed reinforcement, they could have done that. If the police knew that they needed by far more tactics in terms of logistics to deal with that situation, they could have done that. Okay. What we're eventually not satisfied with is the regular excuse that 4 promising Nigerian youths who probably are innocent, of course, their innocence presumed under the law, were murdered on a broad daylight.
Let me chip this in, because I wish you had come in while we had the CID on. Well, this comes from Godson. He says, I live in Port Harcourt. That place used to be a militant den, and there's a strong police unit there, even along the new airport road on Aluu. He also says, the RS has emergency response free call. The police was scared to act. They were actually there, and he says, how come they did nothing?
So the Inspector General of Police should swing into action.
Because there are questions about the DPO's whereabouts at the time. Is he on leave?
That's exactly what I mean. The Commissioner of Police must be invited to give an account of what has happened. The DPO, whose responsibility it is to superintend that area, must be invited. And the local police officers who are directly in charge of that area must also be invited. In the final analysis, it is to know what manner of conspiracy that the DCP is alluding to. Because conspiracy could be, as a matter of fact, in Nigeria's situation, a conspiracy between the community and the police. Wow. We have heard of incidences where armed robbers operate, and the police will look the other way around. So the conspiracy theory can also be between those perpetrators and the police is a possibility.
This won't be strange to the IG, because remember that Lagos incident where he made that statement that how come you all allowed this happen, especially when I was in town. So it should be assumed that they all should be called to question, and just as you also highlighted.
Coming on the heels of the Mobi attack and realizing that blood means nothing to the Nigerian people, you will agree that every possibility is actually possible in the Nigerian situation now.
But let's also explore the role of vigilantes, because we understand that these boys were picked up by vigilante groups. Do you think that we should review how they operate, or should they be dissolved? Do you think that we should have new rules for constitution of vigilante groups?
As of today, there is a single Nigerian police force. whose responsibility is spelled out clearly under the Constitution as well as under the Police Act. Any other group, whether vigilante or whatever name called, must be able to abide by the law. And therefore, if there is a vigilante group, their responsibility may at best be that of giving information, or if you like, at most, apprehending suspected criminals and handing them over to the constituted authority. A vigilante group that exceeds that bound should be held liable for the direct and natural consequences of their act. And therefore, what may happen is that whereas it is easy to say no vigilante group, the reality on the ground is that the failure of the police has also justified the emergence or creation of some of these groups.
But they must act within certain framework and law.
I have made that point clearly. But when they don't, the state must punish such a transgression. If they don't, and that's why I talked about the culture of violence and impunity. Impunity thrives where you do not do anything about a particular act and then give the chances for its reoccurrence.